It's Jay, Stone Go, Gary Fife, Jolly Deputies, Muskogee Radio, Marblehead, Street. Welcome to our program. We have a major change in our lineup today. We will be talking to some folks about fire safety, which gives an idea of what we're dealing with, maybe some ideas of how.
Promotional campaign says that the soul of Alaska's culture lies in those isolated yet thriving Native communities. With the opening of the Alaska Native Heritage Center and these village recreations here in the biggest city in the state, that distance has been reduced a great deal. For Inside Alaska, I'm Gary Fife.
Now hold on, Gary. We can't go to Alaska yet. You still have one more Washington story to tell us about.
I don't know if you remember, but there was an incident in Ames history where one of its leadership types got in a huge argument and actually shot some people, AIM leaders, and means, took it as a personal grudge. And then later on, we were meeting at their first convention in Cass Lake, Minnesota. And you know how tribes kind of congregate together. A bunch of Oklahoma folks, and among them was Carter Camp, the guy who had shot the other AIM guy. And we were talking with him and, laughing and joking, Oklahoma guys do, and talking about what we were going to do. And resolutions came out of that usual sort of stuff, and everybody went their own ways. But then that's when the rift really began in the AIM leadership. And so somehow Russell Means connected me to Carter Camp because he was there at the same campfire I was, and we were all sitting around joking and laughing. We were in the Ambassador Hotel in D.C. And I was, sitting there having a cocktail or two with friends, and we were laughing, and AIM guys are over there in their little huddle, and things like that. And I noticed that Means was kind of, catching me out of the corner of his eye, and you could see the wheels starting to, where have I seen this guy, kind of thing. And I said, well, folks, let me run to the O, to go Georgia, and didn't think anything about it, and got up and left, and I saw Means look at two of his boys and go, I didn't think anything. Okay, what's he going to do here? Got in there, and no sooner had I got in there than the door smashed open, and these three guys came in, including Russell Means. Bang, bang, bang. You were with Carter Camp. I said, I'm a reporter. I was with everybody. What are you talking about? And they just wailed on me, and actually robbed me too, by the way. I said, there's an Indian activist for you, Turns out some people have feet of clay. And it worked me over pretty good. Luckily, I was able to recover, but, all right, you're going to hold a grudge, so will I. Whenever you're doing something, I'm not going to be there. I'll send somebody else. I won't do it. So that's kind of the way it was, and I stayed away from those folks unless they were, coming through our area. And I had a good relationship with Dennis Banks. And like when he came through here, on a couple of his marches, I sat and interviewed him for Native News Today. The social conditions that affected our people, of course, poverty, and then there was alcoholism, and then loss of language and culture. So these are the stories that need to be told. And if there's a bad side to it, like somebody sold somebody something out, or somebody had their fingers in the till when they shouldn't have, well then we have to own up to it and tell those kinds of stories. And that pretty well set my philosophy up until this very day on making sure our people got as much of the complete story as possible. And that kind of propelled me through 11 years in Washington, D.C., into MVTO Communications in Minneapolis, which was first-person radio. And I discovered the power in electronic media, broadcast media, that, when a radio show can have so much more impact on it. Then there was an opportunity to move to Alaska and do the the nation's first weekday radio news service. And up until that point, most of public radio, which was the medium I chose rather than commercial, had done a lot of stories, some better than others, but they tended to focus on the same subjects, like whatever's happening terrible in Indian America, like, of course, alcoholism and loss of children through adoptions. And on the good side, the colorful powwow. So a lot of sitting ducks there that I got to tackle. But with that radio news service, National Native News, I was the first guy to come in there, and all we had was a old gray metal government surplus desk and a telephone and a phone book. So, okay, build us a news service. And this is from Alaska at the tail end of the time zones, So like when we got to work at 8 a.m., they were having lunch in D.C. And we lose an hour there trying to talk to those folks while they're out having lunch. So I'm thinking, okay, this has got to be lots of fun, I'm sure. We had to convince public radio stations across the nation that we were indeed putting out a news service, and not just, an advocacy show for Native people, which most of them were at the time. And I had to convince news directors to use our service, use it in a decent time slot, and then talk to their reporters on how to cover Native America. So, we get, there's no Indians in our area. We don't need this. And I said, it's also an educational tool, because most people don't know, their front from their back about our people. They know more about our dead ancestors than they do today's Native folks, their tribe just down the road. So that's what we're looking for, is to give people a realistic introduction to Native America. And no explorations or any of that silliness. This is what's going on. And for our own people, we had to know what was going on ahead of time in Congress, if we could, or around the nation just as quickly as possible. And the other, methods, like a monthly newspaper, or whatever, even the weeklies, would be at least 2 to 3 weeks behind. Yeah, but Akwesasne Notes was fine for what it was, but it was always, the U.S. imperialists continue to oppress freedom-loving natives, and we go to page 3. And they would have some tribe in South America, dealing with a U.S. industry of some sort. I was thinking, no, we need to know what's going on here now. If a tribe comes up with a solution, an alcoholism program that works, let's spread the word. Or if a tribe stands up in a land claim, like the Taos Blue Lake tribe did, in regaining their Blue Lake away from the Park Service, we need to know things like that. I don't know how many people are familiar with the world of public radio and public broadcasting, but there's an annual conference called PRC, the Public Radio Conference. But it's like a huge money from the government, CPB, office, and whatever big bucks they can bring in from big corporations. And CPB runs it and does its dog and pony show and things like that. But they had never been a supporter of National Native News. I mean, we came in with a great proposal saying we don't want to, beat up on the white man, nor are we going to give you the romantic sob stories. We're going to give you news. And they said, we do not fund news services. And they turned right around and give it to this Chicano woman who did exactly the same thing, because she was from a big radio station on the East Coast. And we said, we don't think you're going to be good enough. We don't think that you're going to be popular enough, and just don't meet our priority criteria. I said, okay, I'll remember that. Sometimes Indians can hold a grudge for a long time. And so the next year, we went back again with the same idea, and we had a track record at that point. We had, I think, nearly 100 stations using us, and these were, of course, all the tribal stations, which did not have this service in the past, but then public radio stations in the key areas where we needed to reach the Native people there, and the public radio listeners, which tend to be a much more educated listenership. And we were really proud of that. And so we took all that information in and said, and by the way, since you didn't fund us, we did have some success. And we're talking about the MacArthur Foundation, the MacArthur Genius folks. We landed a substantial grant from them, from the Johnson Foundation, the red Band-Aid people. Big health coverage thing from them, and then a couple of other engineering firms and some big name funders who had, to my knowledge, had not participated in supporting much of Native America, particularly broadcasting. Now, I may be wrong, and if I am, prove me wrong, go ahead. And we had all of that kind of backing us up. So we went through the second time, and same people said, well, you've done such a great job of building your case and raising money. We feel like you don't need our money. I said, my God, and a lot of other expletives, which I can't share on mic, but I said, we're damned if we do and damned if we don't, And I said, well, I'll find a way to get even with you personally. So we went on with our routine, and we had to do a PR campaign to get people to use us and something to remember us by. And the scheme we came up with for this particular year was a bow tie. And instead of, the silver or whatever, we had a leather medallion with our logo printed on it. And we were handing those out at this conference. And a lot of people said, oh, cool, very good, very good. And the keynote speaker, who happened to be the U.S. Senator from Alaska, Ted Stevens, and you were talking a huge financial hammer there, was the keynote speaker. And of course, our managers and people all knew him real well. And I was chatting with him and I introduced myself, and Senator Stevens, it's a pleasure. He says, you're Gary, huh? I listen to you. I said, you do? I said, oh my God, it's nice to know somebody's paying attention, And he said, oh yeah, boy, if there's anything we can ever do to help you guys out, that kind of thing. I said, well, Senator, here, please wear one of our gift souvenirs here, this bow tie from National Native News. And he put it on, and it's laying over on top of his regular tie, so it's, National Native News right in the middle. And we went on with our luncheon and things like that, and everybody's getting prepared to be seated. You know how those things go, those rubber chicken things. And my bosses said, well, we got to sit at this table with the CPB brass. And these were the decision makers and the big shots and people who thought they were big shots. And I said, okay, and I took my time, chatted with a couple of people on the way over, and when I got there, all the chairs were taken. And I looked around and said, well, there's no room at the end for this one. I said, okay, well, I don't care for rubber chicken that much. And I said, okay, well, I'll see you later. I'm going to go out and have lunch. And they were horrified. They looked around and saw what would happen. No, please don't do that. Oh, please, Gary, you can't leave. I said, well, physically, there's no room for Native America, figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
I said, no, and this woman grabbed a chair from another table and drug it over and the plates and the whole thing, and we're sitting here like this. And they got on with it, and finally they got around to the keynote speaker and said, and to deliver, our keynote today, one of our best funding source friends and supporters in Congress, U.S. Senator Ted Stevens. And he walks up, and they've got, the closed circuit TV and the big screens and things like that, and one above him. And there is National Native News on that tie, right in the middle of it. I mean, and they, head and shoulder kind of thing, and bingo, it was right there. And I was never so happy in my whole life. And I did one of these and glared at this woman, and she said, oh, God, and she turned beet red. I mean, if you ever seen any white folks turn red, I mean, she just did. So, well, it seemed like we do have some friends after all, don't we? and went on with it. And I said, all right, thank you, God.
Ate your rubber chicken and it reminded you of a blubber.
Yeah, the blubber was better, actually, because you knew where that was coming from. And I mean, anybody can kill a chicken, but who's going to kill a whale, right? So I was happy from that point, and then I said, well, look, folks, you know, my bosses, and said, you do something with CPB, kick their ass for me, because I don't want to ever talk with those folks again, and I'll just go do my job, mind my own business. And that was my vindication. I mean, that was the one that just made me feel so wonderful.
As you can see, Gary's had a very storied life, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. But we have one more segment to show you. It's where Gary is now, what he's doing, and where he goes from here. So be sure to tune in for that. So for the Muskogee Creek Nation Office of Public Relations, I'm Mark Abbott, thanking you for watching our presentation of Gary Fife, A Life in Media, because this is someone you ought to know.